Hi, friends. I'm Scott Giles, and welcome to Power Talk, my podcast here on Facebook Live and YouTube. I cover topics related to spirituality, hypnotic coaching, and the hypnotic arts and sciences generally. If you'd like to know more about my professional work or sign up for my free e-newsletter, Power Lines, check out my website, which I'll tag at the end of this video. Well, today I want to talk about a popular topic, and that is there a link between depression and cancer? Let me give my answer out front. I believe there is, but it is indirect and complicated, nowhere near as simple as a lot of people believe. Cancer is one of those diseases that we as a society project our fears onto. For example, most people who have cancer will survive it. Most people who have heart disease will die of heart disease. Yet everyone's afraid of getting cancer and no one's afraid of getting heart disease. Doesn't make sense, but there's something in the human consciousness, something atavistic about a medical condition that's wasting. Because for 95% of human evolution, wasting diseases meant plague. They were contagious. So I think there's an unconscious fear that manifests. And when someone meets someone else or learns of someone else having cancer, that puts them in touch with their own fear. And to try to get out from under that fear, they will often tell themselves a soothing story. Like, well, it was because of so-and-so was depressed, and I'm not depressed, and therefore I'm not going to get cancer. I understand how a person's mind might do that to make them feel better through distraction. It's not actually true. Well, the first data point in all this is the ACE study, or the Adverse Childhood Experiences Study, funded by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, the CDC. Investigators went to Kaiser Piemonte in San Diego, the largest managed care organization in the United States, and sampled 17,000 plus individuals to look for a link between adverse psychological experiences as a child and the appearance of medical problems later in life. And they found one. The results were just astounding. In this non-clinical general population, the rates of child abuse in the form of physical abuse, sexual abuse, emotional abuse, and neglect were remarkably high, ranging on the category from 8% to 25%. That's really a public health tragedy. Basically, one child in four apparently has some form of abuse or neglect going on in their life. And the belief came to be that this is the single biggest contributor to the risk for the development of psychiatric or medical disorders later in life, and more of a factor than even, the genetic inheritance a person has. These adverse childhood experiences increase the risk for heart disease, stroke, depression, drug abuse, suicide, the likelihood of chronic pulmonary lung diseases. Well, that latter increases 390%. Hepatitis increases 240%. The risk for depression increases 460%. And the risk for suicide attempts increase 1,220% for these people who have these adverse childhood experiences. Now, if you're curious about yourself, I do have a video on my YouTube channel about the ACE study, and you can actually see the questions and take the questions yourself and compute your own ACE score. But basically, if you have a score above 4 on the 10 questions, your risk for developing an inflammatory condition later in life, and cancer is one such, is dramatically greater. So it's not an intellectual stretch to think that there is some sort of a clear link between depression, mental health in general, and the development of cancer. And beyond whatever biological processes may be at work here, there are obvious emotional processes in play. People who have a high adverse childhood experience score are much more likely, because of emotional issues that result from those experiences, to engage in a lifestyle that increases risk of cancer: smoking, excessive drinking, poor nutrition, and so on. So all of that contributes to believing that there's some kind of a link between depression and cancer, or bad mental health, or abuse in childhood and cancer, and also a whole bunch of other medical conditions later in life. That's really an interesting and disturbing finding. But now we have a second data point, and this is a recent study published in the journal called Cancer on August 7th, 2023, titled Depression, Anxiety, and the Risk of Cancer, a long list of authors that contributed to the study. And this article recounts that they found that depression and anxiety were not associated with the outcome of developing cancer for most people, the single exception being smoking-related cancers. This was especially pronounced in breast cancer, where a link between depression and breast cancer was not found. It wasn't found by a substantial margin. They processed data from nearly 320,000 people using established psychometric tools in cohorts from the Netherlands, United Kingdom, Norway, and Canada. So what do we make of this? We have the ACE study showing a clear link from adverse childhood experiences and the development of inflammatory conditions later in life, and cancer is one such. And then we have this more recent study, which does not seem to show that link. So how do we balance these two competing pieces of high-quality research? Well, the first thing to remember is that this more recent study is a meta-study, meaning it was created by crunching together the results of other studies. This is a way to do research, but it's a way that comes with some risks, because results can vary among the studies used because of factors specific to the studies, target population, statistical issues that may not generalize. So in this case, the authors note that some of the studies they used supported a link between mental states and development of cancer, and other studies did not. So they sort of cancel each other out when you lump them together. Therefore, the results have to be understood with a grain of salt. They're suggestive, but not proof. So the study that shows, the ACE study that shows there is a link between adverse childhood experiences and inflammatory conditions later in life, probably is the more rigorous academically, whereas this more recent one is not as rigorous because it is a meta-study with studies used that have disparate results, that are results actually that are at 180 degrees to each other. Now, my own take on all of this is that the jury is still very much out on any claim that mental states bring on disease, except in the obvious case where a mental state encourages lifestyles that are risky, such as heavy drinking. However, in those cases, the cause of the disease isn't the mental state, the cause is the heavy drinking or the behavior. Now, this is important, and I've been campaigning for a long time to my healthcare associates not to blame people for getting sick, or encouraging people to think they deserve their illness because of something they've done with their mind. I tell my own clients they are not, for the most part, responsible for getting sick. However, what I think is not in dispute is that once you have an illness, your mental attitude is important in influencing your outcome. It may not be the reason why you got sick, but it may be the reason why you recover. People who are feeling better, who are more optimistic, who are eating better, sleeping better, in well-functioning relationships, are going to do better with any medical condition you care to name. That's not in dispute. And the good news is that one has control over the mental attitude one brings to one's self-care when seeking wellness. So I believe that the best evidence we have to date is that the diseases we call cancer are complicated things and probably have a multi-causal onset, meaning they don't just have one cause. A number of things have to conspire together, with many things contributing to the mix, but none being in and of themselves determinative. So yeah, adverse childhood experiences may be a big factor, and perhaps mental attitude is another, but there can easily be other factors which balance that out for any particular person, and it will vary from individual to individual. So while there is a tendency to want to think that complicated problems have simple solutions, in my experience, they seldom do. And nowhere is that more evident than in what we know about cancer. So is there a link between depression and cancer? Certainly not a direct one. It may be a contributing factor, just like adverse childhood experiences may be a contributing factor that will have a result in some people, but not in others. And currently, as unsatisfying as that is, because it's not a simple answer, currently that's the best answer we have. Hey, thank you for your time and attention today. I'll be back next week with another talk on a different subject, and you are invited. It does help me if you let others know about my videos, so please like, share, and subscribe. And if I can be of help to you, feel free to reach out through email, my website, or my Patreon channel, and have a great week.